This is Critical Nonsense, our high-lowbrow show about culture, science, and tech. This week, special guest Dylan Fowler joins Aaron and I to talk about kids' TV and reads and their impact on us as adults.
Woo!
Somewhere here on the podcast. This is what Aaron sounds like today. And I guess this week I get the wonderful honor of also introducing well, I guess we need to introduce our wonderful, fantastic, fabulous, amazing executive producer who sounds like whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hi, this is Jess.
We're making it weird, guys.
It's
We're still without Joey. I am a ship unmoored, but I am moored. Maybe that makes me a very small yacht or a very large dinghy, because we are joined today by the most incredible guest host that we love to have on this podcast. I'd like to welcome to the pod, Dylan Fowler.
Hi. Will it be rights or infringement if I sing the beginning of "She Will Be Loved" right now?
You mean the beginning of beep? No, it's fine. Go ahead.
The beginning of beep. If I don't sing the lyrics, beep, 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 beep. There we go.
I love it. I love it. Yes. Yes. Oh, it is so good to have you on the pod, Dylan. Welcome back.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Well, to kick things off, right, I know that we always have to just check with Amelia Bedelia and see, is there any housekeeping to be done? I don't think so.
Subscribe. If you miss Joey, give us 5 stars. If you don't miss Joey, give us 5 stars.
Yes.
That's what he would want.
That is literally what he would want, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So thank you, kind listeners. And with that, I think, can we hop right into this blitzkrieg episode of Critinon?
Critinon.
Well, for this then, I would like to turn the mic over, proverbially, to our special guest, Dylan Fowler. Dylan, you've got some thoughts on your mind, and we're really excited to hear them.
You know, I've been thinking, first of all, every time I'm on this podcast, I talk about my mother. I need to talk to my therapist about that. But my mother was a kindergarten teacher. And so I feel often as I'm going through my adult life that I recognize childhood aspects of adults, if that makes sense. And growing up, I would watch a lot of television, read a lot of books, listened to a lot of cassette tapes, and was lately thinking about how all of that media kind of made me into the adult that I am today. And so I came on this podcast to ask my friends here, how has our childhood media affected our adulthoods?
I love it. I love it.
How has it?
Oh,
well, it's funny because I remember growing up and I was Sesame Street obsessed, right? Like I was a total am a total Jim Henson head. I, from a very young age, I mean, I like truly learned a lot from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You know, like all of those like 80s, 90s, even 70s Sesame Street moments. And I remember growing up because my sister was a Barney head, a Barney the dinosaur head. And now, I mean, this probably means absolutely nothing, but my sister Barney's message was feeling, I love you, you love me, we're a happy family, if you will, you know, like the emotions. And my sister is a highly emotional person, very emotionally sensitive, very emotionally in tune.
I get it.
And then Sesame Street on the flip side is a lot, you know, there's definitely a bit of that, but how do I say this without sounding like an ass? I am more of a thinker than more of a critical thinker than my sister is. And so I remember thinking growing up that I attributed that to our favorite shows as children. if that makes any sense. This is like such a random stream of consciousness. But
I love it.
Welcome to the show.
It's also true.
So looking into our adulthoods, I'm curious, Aaron and Jess, I mean, what are some, off the top of your heads, what are some forms of media, television, books, whatever, that you think, you know, kind of guides you in your adult life?
I have a couple that come to mind. Like, when I was really young, I was definitely like raised by the TV for sure. Like, yes, my parents were both there, but like they were like, you know, the 80s version of people putting an iPad in front of their kid wherever they go is me being put in front of the TV, watching Sesame Street, but also reading a lot. So I loved to read, and I used to read the Boxcar Children. That was like my jam. I mean, basically all the Scholastic like series books. So like there was that, there was Goosebumps was my jam.
The Boxcar Children, correct me if I'm wrong, literally just lived in an abandoned boxcar.
They most certainly did. And
so it was about like these orphaned children who didn't have a home, is that right? And just their shenanigans.
Yes. And it was a mixture of like shenanigans and mystery. And I think I know what appealed to me as a kid, which is actually a thread that was really common in like 90s media in general around kids, which is the theme of just being able to explore. And I should say 80s and 90s media, like movies like The Goonies, like the parents are around for the first 5 minutes of the first act and the very end, and that's it. And the entire middle, right? Like, and it's that idea of like, how amazing is it between like, in theory, 3 and 5 o'clock or something like that before parents come home from work. But when you still had the freedom to like go out into the world and explore the creek that was around the corner from the house. And like, you would get in trouble. You would like find a snake or, you know, whatever. But it captured to me, the Boxcar Children, a lot of those shows, it imprinted on me like an appreciation for discovery. Like the idea that even what's right in front of you is waiting to reveal something else, whether it be like a mission that they're on or like something sciencey. Because I also like Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, Wishbone, like that was also my jam. And all of those. What's the story? We got to wag another tail. I'm just, you know.
I had that computer game. Did you? Yeah.
PBS
again,
knew,
and there's some media.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, because like the Carmen Sandiego TV show and then all of the like computer games were so good. And actually what you just described is like, you know, it's the edutainment era. It's like, let's put things that will teach you things in the most fun and engaging ways. And granted, admittedly, to this day, I suck at geography. I was never good at Carmen Sandiego, but I really can rock a red jumpsuit. Like I already like a trench coat. Like I got that. I got that on lock. Yeah. But Jess, what about you?
I see the hat really working for you too.
Thank you so much. The yellow sash just like sets off my eyes every once in a while. But the other thing that I also appreciated about those is that like one of the things that you mentioned about Sesame Street that I love, that's actually baked into the history of Sesame Street as well, is an appreciation for, and like the whole idea was like, let's put lots of different types of people on TV. Like there weren't black folks in kids TV or like any marginalized people in quote unquote kids TV. Like before that, it was Howdy Doody Time. It was like, there was
that was the first season. Like the first episode had folks of different. It's not like they eased into that, you know, as time went on. I think that Jim Henson really wanted to make that statement. I think it was the 70s that Sesame Street first came out, right?
Yes.
And I'm sorry that I cut you off there, Aaron, but that made me think of also the Mr. Rogers of it all.
Yes.
And how Fred Rogers, you know, I mean, and the infamous pool, cooling your feet in the pool. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
The
that was it was a major episode. Yeah.
it was in like, there's a lot of really terrible things going on in the United States in race relations. And without really mentioning any of that at all, Mr. Rogers had an episode where his mailman, who was a black man, came in, and it was a hot summer day. Mr. Rogers is sitting there with his pants rolled up and his shoes off with his feet in a kiddie pool. And it's not a big deal at all. He just invites the mailman to come over and take his shoes off and put his feet in the pool. And he's like, it's hot, whatever. But that statement on television that, two people of different races are sharing this space and sharing this pool. I mean, that was something that I think made more of an impact on the children that were watching it than made on the adults that, that I think helps to raise, hopefully, a generation of folks who are a little more open-minded as far as that goes.
And, I think I'm literally wearing a 42 Jackie Robinson hat today, and it's for a number of reasons, but for one of them, which is kind of weird, I want to be able to look into every Zoom window that I'm in and be constantly reminded of hope. Like, to be constantly reminded of, like, there's more on the other side. There's work to be done. There's pain that will be had, but there is somewhere over the rainbow. And specifically, what I think is very interesting is that when that episode was released, there was public backlash. And every time any one of these kids' shows started to open up the aperture beyond the howdy-doody demographic of the 50s and 60s, there was a reaction. But as with Mr. Rogers, as with Sesame Street, I think good persists. I think that the benefits and the values fundamentally that get instilled outpace the discomfort that PBS fans at the time were expressing. And I think that also leaches into kids' programming. Like when I think about some of the things that I learned in my programming and how my parents would react and be a little, like, maybe a little on edge, maybe a little, or like it would clearly be that there was a beat that was skipped that we needed to talk about. And silly example, but a good one, is Ren and Stimpy. Like, I love toilet humor. I find toilet humor deeply hilarious. I think that gross out humor makes me giggle. I really have an appreciation for that show, for not just art, but like the art of animation. The creator, who's very, very complicated, John Kricfalusi, like problematic dude. That needs to be held at the same time as the fact that he always said that every frame on the show needed to be distinct, unique, and completely different. So for the seasons that he was a part of the show after he created it, you'd have all sorts of these, very dramatic moments of Ren's face stretching out or Stimpy like jumping up and down for happy, happy, joy, joy. They didn't reuse any of the cells. The only things that they reused were like occasionally background plates, but they reanimated everything. And then they had those crazy like zoom in close-ups that were so gross, but like artistically detailed and shaded and colored. And it was an interesting contrast when you put that against like the Warner Brothers Looney Tunes cartoons of the past. So I think that I also picked up like art, like an appreciation for artistry and entertainment. And then entertainment could be artistic. But my parents hated it because they were like, dude, that cat's farting. That's gross.
Oh, yeah. I was never allowed to watch Ren and Stimpy because it was all of that.
Right. Right.
Because that thing.
Because of all of that.
Yes.
But you're right in that also, I feel like 90s cartoons was a very interesting time for animators to just play around. And like there was so many different types of animation that was happening. And again, here we are. I think that there was a generation of artists, of folks who were paying attention more to, the art of the cartoons, but then maybe of the world. I'm grasping at straws here, y'all.
I remember claymation.
Yes.
Remember Gumby?
Wallace and Gromit on the Cheese Moon.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, Wallace and Gromit.
That's
God, I love
that's
them.
like sculptural.
It is.
Art.
Well,
Even
and the thing, so I think that so actually Wallace and Gromit, all of the Nicktoons creators, and then some of the earlier animators on Cartoon Network as well. There are a number of different mini docs about this, and we'll post a few links to them in the show notes. But specifically with Nickelodeon, for example, they wanted to get animators that were artists, that were like from the indie art scene and doing something totally different because, and it was for three reasons. One, they as a network at the time were literally born of counterculturalists. Like they were people who did not want to do things the way that their parents did. And all of the original programming for Nickelodeon had that strain of like anti-establishmentarianism. And then also, they were trying to capture the spirit of children having worth and value and being separate from parents. But they specifically wanted an art style that could distinguish their brand. They wanted something that was ownable by the network. And if they went through all of the 70s like artistry, like if you think of He-Man, if you think of Thundercats, like all that animation was really low budget. It was really, really like step and repeat. And it was very clunky. And they were the first ones to be like, we're bringing people from the art world and giving them the chance to make shows. And that's where Doug came from. He was the guy that made Doug was a comic book artist. He made like a comic strip, right? Like when you see it in the line, right, in the you're opening, like, yup, it's totally written from that sensibility.
You must have known this. You must have learned this later in life. Also, we should just pause to honor the casual use of anti-disestablishmentarianism in colloquial
vernacular. I did say anti-establishmentarianism because I wasn't sure if it was technically a moment of anti-disestablishmentarianism.
Rejection of the church?
I don't know. I was thinking specifically the rejection of like establishments, the magisterium, the capitalist magisterium. We'll do it that way just to make it real complicated.
There we go.
Bottom line is
Hanna-Barberas of the world. The Disney, the Walt Disneys of the world. Who made Looney Tunes?
Looney Tunes was Warner Brothers, and that's what's really interesting. At that time of animation, I love this era, and I'm realizing that this is also something that imprinted on me pretty deeply, apparently, too.
Yes, yeah.
So Disney was going in the shitter in the 70s and 80s. Like, after the Black Cauldron in particular, people thought that Disney was literally going out of business. So it was at its, like, lowest there. So you're going into the 90s, and the thing that brought them back was The Little Mermaid. They were going in a direction of bringing Alan Menken and Broadway in to like completely bring the brand back, and it obviously worked. What was happening at the same time is that you had other studios that were being founded by ex-Disney animators to try to create, to basically capitalize on this. How can you expand the language of animation such that Disney doesn't dominate it for another 30, 40 years? And so you had Don Bluth, who established his studio, and he was the guy, the animator behind Rock-a-Doodle, All Dogs Go to Heaven, Titan AE. You can name these movies from the early 90s that were all animated. Oliver and Company was actually one of his when he was still with Disney.
Oliver and Company.
So the thing that he was doing and the thing that he stood for was creating stories that really respected kids as smart people. And this, again, was like a strain throughout all 90s kids entertainment, was like, don't talk down to them, talk up to them. But where they lost their way is that while Disney stayed light and family, and even when they hit heavy themes, they would keep it sort of like a little, they would keep it very, very light touch. You had Don Bluth's company doing All Dogs Go to Heaven, which if you ask anybody about them, they're still scarred. Like they hear the name Charlie and they're like, nope, can't do it. Nope, stop. Don't like, To this day, I haven't watched all of All Dogs Go to Heaven or any of the sequels. And now that I have a dog, I just won't. It's too heavy and hard.
I assume that it's about dead dogs, and I just stay away from that. No. I just keep clear of that.
Yeah.
But was that the Land Before Time?
Yes.
Guy as well, because that is one that scarred me for life.
Yes.
And like certainly have a deep fear of losing my mother because of Littlefoot.
Whoa. Intense.
Yes. Well, that's what these things do. And interestingly, like movies. Oh, Bambi. Oh, what's the Fox and the Hound? Like, yo, you go way back.
Losing your best friend.
Oh,
there is
yes.
some sad shit that goes on in a lot of those movies.
Yes, and I think that that's all coming from the fact that there's a tension, and this has been happening across all animated media for decades. There's a tension between whether or not it's for adults or kids. Like, there is always a tension with the fact that it is incredibly artistically rigorous to create these characters, especially when it was hand-drawn and cell animation. And so, like, you have people who are trying to tell robust stories that also are worthy of animation. Like, why do it in an animated format rather than just filming it? And then, you know, there's an emotional tenor that comes through animation that can't come through, or comes through extremely differently, maybe I'll put it that way, than film. Like the moment in The Lion King where Simba is about to get hit by the gazelles. Like, we're not talking about, like, and we're not even going to the moment, we're not going there yet. We're just going to leave that one out. But, because you were all crying, as soon, but when they do the Hitchcock zoom on him as he sees the gazelles running toward him. Is it gazelles? No, they're not. Are they wildebeest?
That's like the terror.
The terror.
And the dramatic music in the background.
Yes. Yeah. You can't
I got goosebumps.
And think about it. Like, that's literally a technique from film, but because it was done in animation, there's things with the colors, there's things with the actual pacing and whatnot that you just can't get the same... Those big eyes, like the gigantic, no being has eyes that big. And so when you see that much fear, taking up that much space on a face, that's huge.
Well, you mentioned I think that you're right. And that Disney, it took off with The Little Mermaid. And I would like to also point out, because it's Pride Month, Howard Ashman had a huge part to do with all of that beginning Disney life. And a gay man who died of the AIDS epidemic, I think days before Beauty and the Beast won an Oscar, which was his crowning. Anyways, we could do a whole episode about Howard Ashman, but they found the sweet spot in this time that it was fun for kids to watch, of course, but it was also fun for adults to watch. And that I remember my parents taking me to the movie theater to see Pocahontas, and my dad laughing out loud. You know, or I rewatched The Lion King recently, and probably would not totally fit into 2022 standards. But when Timon and Pumbaa, they create a diversion, and then Timon goes, "What do you want me to do? Dress and drag and do the hula?" And then he's sings that whole number. Hilarious. So absolutely good. Queer humor, something that kids probably, it's funny he's wearing a hula and or he's wearing, dancing or whatever. But that is dress and drag and do the hula. That is something that is for the adults.
It's so true. And come on, Nathan Lane also doing the voice that is doing that. It's just come on, you can't get better than that. But I'll keep going with this Lion King thing, because I think the moment that best expresses why, and this, I'll post this video because this is someone else's hot take, but it's comparing the live action Jon Favreau Lion King with the animated Lion King, and it's saying, why was it so bad? Because spoiler alert, it was terrible. It was really, really bad. And the main reason is that they posit is because it was basically a shot-for-shot remake, but you used a different technology that can't do what animation did. And the example that best illustrates this is I Just Can't Wait to Be King. The second that Simba jumps up and all the trees change into these really fantastical colors that aren't real, that is not what any jungle looks like at any time of day. And it literally just happens when he's, the spotlight falls on him. That's sort of, you can't stretch reality in the way that you can in animation. That you can, or that you can't stretch it in the way on film that you can, or in photorealistic world that you can in animation. And I think that as I think about your question, Dylan, the idea that the world can be bigger than the way that it looks, that things can be larger than life, that there's joy in the moments where somebody breaks down and do the hula. There's surprise and joy in being over the top, Robin Williams, or, as the genie, or just going to call her Divine because it was just Divine. It wasn't
Just
Ursula.
Divine. Yeah. Divine's starring role in The Little Mermaid.
Exactly. If you don't know about that, look it up. Ursula is an amazing John Waters, acolyte. We'll put it that way. But anyway, like, I'm a very animated person. You can hear it in my voice in the podcast. You see it. The people that know me, I'm very gestural. My hands don't stay in one position. They can't. I've never been able to keep my hands on a table. And so I think that all comes from everything I watched as a kid, that like the world wants to be born, or like wants to be baseline and wants to be beige. But the world is better with color. The world is better with flourish. The world is better with archaic language that doesn't fit into sentences, but by golly gee willikers, I'm dropping it in right here. You know what I mean? Like that.
Well, it's the embracing the silliness of the world.
Yes.
Because there is so much silliness. I mean, I watch my dog and she does silly things all the time, and she's an animal, you know, like,
right.
I think it's a natural part of life, but I think that there's such a push in adulthood to be serious and to, you know, do what you need to do and take things seriously and, you know, raise the family, picket fence, all of that stuff, you know, but like, that's all great. But I think that in moments like there's moments of whimsy every day. There's moments of silliness every day. And I think that it's really fun to look at the world and thinking about those trees that are blues and purples and colors that would never happen in real life. But it's like, why not just disappear into that fantasy for a minute? You know, I think that makes life so much better than, you know.
I was at the movie theater with my niece and nephew in November, and we went to see Encanto, and it was a very weird day. We had like a really intense family thing happen that afternoon, and basically my brother, my sister-in-law, and I were like, we're taking the kids to the movies. We're going to put happy around. And if anyone's seen Encanto, like, it's it's a movie about a family going through a really hard thing. So like the kids are loving the music. They're like, it's bright and colorful, like, and also the music is killer. We all know it. We don't talk about him, so I won't mention his name. However, at the exact same time, my brother and I are literally bawling. We are literally with the kids while they are either really excited or asleep, because, you know, when kids see movies, they're either excited or asleep. You keep it lulled or quiet for too long, they're not there anymore. And we're just sitting there sniffling and like, this is so hard. Why did we go to see this?
This was a bad choice.
And so we all walk out afterward, and the kids are like bleary-eyed because they slept through half of it. And they're like, that was so fun, Uncle Aaron. That was so fun, Daddy. Like, let's do it again. And weirdly, I went home. I flew back to LA. I can't remember where I lived at that point. And I watched it again with Branch. Like, I did watch it again. We couldn't watch it again while we were there, but I watched it again. And there was something about having those two things side by side that made it healing for me. Like, it really was having the whimsy, the stretch, the light, the colors, along with this real deep, unerring truth that eventually, when they're older and they watch it again, they're going to be like, oh, I get it. I remember why you were doing, I remember that you were doing that. And I can see why that would do that. That's hard.
Well, and they're going to remember going to the movie theater with Uncle Aaron too. I can promise you that.
It's a good time. It's a good time.
It's also torturous to go through this episode and not being able to sing songs from every single movie that we're talking about.
Oh, it's the
Don't
worst.
withhold.
It's the worst.
Again, it's you know, I don't want Disney. I don't want, you know, Walt to be coming out of his grave and knocking on Critical Nonsense's door. All right.
I agree with that.
That will happen.
You know, he would. He would not send somebody from the Haunted Mansion, which would be much more efficient, I would say. There's plenty of ghosts and goblins like literally 50 miles away from me in Anaheim. It's more like 15. But like, nah, he would come up and say, yo, what you doing?
No.
What you
Was that 32 bars from I Just Can't Wait to Be King? Cut it.
Yeah.
Not allowed.
Count me out. See what I did
Count
there?
me out.
That was a little, I just did a thing. It's okay.
Yeah.
You and Sasu.
Thank you. We got jokes. We flap. I think This has been really an energizing conversation. What are you thinking, Dylan? What's on your mind?
Yeah. I mean, same.
I think that's what I was feeling, that we might be rolling into the wrap up corner, because it feels like we've covered a lot of ground. And Jess, perhaps you can help us figure out what ground we've covered to close us out.
I think to twist the words of the great Rue, we're all born in front of the TV and all of it is drag.
What?
Wow.
Jess.
In vivid color, the artistry, the double meaning for children and adults, it's all so much that maybe we don't even appreciate until later. And we look back and we want to watch it all over again.
Man, Jess.
And that's how you do it, Jess.
That's how you do it, Jess. Wow.
That's how you do it. I just can't wait to be as wonderful as Jess someday.
Get out of here. We're
That's
done.
it. No, that's it. That's right.
The Lion King has been taken too far.
Never. You can't cross that lion.
Everyone is dancing. Critical Nonsense is a Sylvain production.
Brought to you by the mirror that Vanessa uses in The Little Mermaid to look at herself, and she's like brushing her hair, and she is like, and like right before she gets married. So like whatever company made that mirror, and probably also made the magical mirror from The Beauty and the Beast, that's who this episode is from. So thanks to them as a sponsor.
Symbology of mirrors in
Disney film.
Disney films. I'm ready to write that paper.
Mirror, mirror on the wall. Well, also, I wanted to go to the drag with mirror, mirror on the wall. Drag race. Ball.
The fairest in the ball.
We'd like to thank the fairest of them all, Dylan Fowler. Thanks for being our special guest today.
Yes, and we'd also, you too, Dylan. And we also, to that point, love executive producer and my personal, just Jess Vander. There you go.
Which Muppet do I choose?
Thank you, my
Beaker.
personal fairy godmother. Yeah. My personal Fraggle Rock. And actually, that is our sound engineer, Alex Contel. Thank you for fraggling all of our rocks every time. We appreciate it.
Thanks to our programming coordinator and, I'm suffering the same thing. I'm like, and insert just the best Sesame Street character, but I can't choose which one. Les Jacobs.
Well, we can also thank the production help that comes from the Muppet Babies, Sarah Gilbert and Nora Mestridge. It's a weird tangent. It's really hard.
I don't know why we're here.
And I don't know.
And as always, thanks, Alen. Sorry, Alen.
Thank you.
Here we are.
Oopsie daisy.
Who is Alen in this universe that we've created? Alen is the mom that you never see in the Muppet Babies.
And knees down, just and like a little bit of skirt.
Shoes.
Yes, blue skirt with white polka dots, and then red heels, and just like calf.
Which is why am I totally... It's the Peanuts, right? Where the adults are like...
Absolutely. You know what? I want to thank Charles Schultz, and therefore, by proxy, Ben Folds, who apparently scored the latest Peanuts film, as I just learned last night, which is such a good...
Yeah. It's a good collab. What a collab.
Ben Folds is, fantastic. I would like to thank Howard Ashman because, again, he changed Disney and he doesn't get as much credit as anyone else who has changed Disney. And
we need a fun fact. What do we need to know about Howard Ashman?
Oh, my God. A fun fact about Howard Ashman. How do I even begin? I mean, he was just so instrumental in the musicality of... I don't know. You put me on the spot, Jess.
Sorry, you'll come back to that at a later date.
We'll plug one
Maybe
in.
in the
show notes. We'll come back to that.
Maybe in the show notes.
Yes, we'll drop a fun fact in the show notes. So
if not,
keep your eyes peeled.
I'd like to thank the original 3 Nicktoons. And I'll throw Real Monsters in there too. It was the fourth, if I remember correctly, because those cartoons so deeply influenced. I mean, the whole network influenced like who I am and how I see the world. But like, I just appreciate everything from Rugrats, Doug, and Ren and Stimpy. That's amazing.
You know what?
Amazing
We didn't
work.
even talk about All That. I want to give a shout out to All That because that was a show that transformed who I am as a person. Okay,
I can't talk about them because I didn't. This is all that.
This is all that.
Check it out.
I did audition for it. I did not get the job. But you know, it was one of those. But you know, they did like
How
the
dare
national
they?
tour things. I just showed up.
How could they?
As a kid, I was doing a lot. I did American Idol too. That I made it a couple rounds, and then didn't make it on TV. So whatever.
What a fun fact.
Yeah, I got.
I
some
know.
fun
How do
facts.
I watch this audition tape?
Doesn't
That's what I'd
exist
like to
anywhere.
know.
Well, it
No.
exists somewhere, but thankfully, I'm sure that it's
Not on the internet.
no. It's been taped over and thrown into some not even temperature controlled room in Burbank. I'm sure of it.
As our outro, what tune shall we?
Damn, that's really hard.
That is really hard. Do you remember Eureka's Castle, Aaron? Did you ever watch that?
Dinner time. Oh yeah.
Eureka! Eureka's
Dinner
Castle.
time. It was so good. That was Jim Henson too, right?
That was Jim. Maybe not. I'm not sure. I don't think so. But Jim Henson adjacent.
Jim Henson adjacent. That's true.
Yeah.
God, Eureka's Castle was the shit. I love that. That was right at the end because I also I was watching a lot of oh, interesting. Because I was watching a lot of Bear in the Big Blue House. I think that was right when I stopped. That's when I grew up. That's when I said no more kids stuff.
Said no more kids shows.
Because they did Nick Jr. Okay,
Everyone, we're leaving.
Okay, we're leaving. All right.
Bye.
I know,
Someone
we
close the
could
door
do
when
this
you.
forever. Bye.
Shut off the lights. Shut off the lights. Bye. I also, just as an aside, I have thought for years that I am a Muppet, and not just any Muppet. I am Kermit.
You're Kermit.
There's no doubt in my mind I am Kermit the Frog.
Wow.
And I'll send you
Aaron,
the gift
did you
later.
know that Miss Piggy is that's a character that I very much relate to. That's the easiest way to say. Anything that she says, I'm always like, that bitch knows what's up.
She is on it. She is on it.
She's on it, So maybe we
kindred.
were meant to be, Aaron.
We were meant to be.
Meant
We
to be.
belong together. I don't know why I thought that Mariah and Miss Piggy are basically the same person, but
Yeah. But
I mean,
maybe.
yeah, the feather boas.
the feather,
know.
but yes.
Yeah.
This ended a couple minutes ago, I'm sure.
Yeah, it did.